Welcome to Haunting Live Podcast, a place where we bring a new paranormal guest each episode to share their journey and experiences. For more Haunting Live real experiences, be sure to follow us on our social on Instagram, Facebook, and also Blue Sky. And don't forget to also check us out on our official website, HauntingLivePodcast.com.
Okay, well, when I decided to start the channel, I was like, what do I call myself, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, I hear voices, and I live in the swamp, so it just kind of seemed to fit, voices from the swamp. Okay, that works. And I literally live about 4 miles from the largest land-based swamp in the continental U.S., and that's the Atchafalaya. It's an 18-mile bridge to cross it.
Hey everyone, check out our merchandise that we have now listed underneath HauntingLivePodcast.com. We used to be on Etsy. We are now on HauntingLivePodcast.com with our merch store. Check it out. We've got so much items all together with cleansing items and crystals and so much more. Check us out, HauntingLivePodcast.com.
Follow us here at Haunting Live, our new shows, and we are honored to have a brand new co-host on our shows now. Yolanta Meri is our co-host, and she does a lot of work for us on the side and introduces people to the show and discusses different topics on the show. So we're really happy to have her here this season. So go check out our brand new episode.
Check out Divine Oracle Podcast with your hosts Gypsy Lady Eva and Brother Chris as they discuss spiritual topics and current events. Sit back and listen. Poppy.
And welcome to this episode of Haunting Live Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this episode. We do have a special guest joining us all the way from Cajun country down there in Louisiana. We welcome Shari to the show. How are you, Shari?
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. We've had a few of your people in your circle around your YouTube channels on our show already, so I know you work closely with them. It's wonderful to have you on as well.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'll give you a few more names. You can call them. Maybe rack up some more.
Yeah, we'd love to have more guests from your circle involved in our show here. They seem to enjoy it, so.
I'm just noticing you got a black onyx around your neck.
I do, yes. This is my pendulum I always wear.
Yeah, mine. I'm wearing my black onyx pendulum tonight. I don't know, something made me take it out this morning, put it on.
I always wear this. It's great for protection and blocking that negative energy and stuff like that. So I always wear that every day. So, well, you have a YouTube channel yourself called Voices from the Swamp. And
that's
can
right.
you tell us a little bit about how that got started to start with? And then we'll go into your background a little bit as well.
Okay. Well, when I decided to start the channel, I was like, what do I call myself, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, I hear voices and I live in the swamp, so it just kind of seemed to fit, voices from the swamp. Okay, that works. And I literally live about 4 miles from the largest land-based swamp in the continental U.S., and that's the Atchafalaya. It's an 18-mile bridge to cross it.
Oh, wow.
And back in 2019, my mother passed. She had severe dementia. Me, my son, my brother, and his son, we had all moved in together to tag team taking care of mom. And we did that for like 10 years. And then she finally passed the summer of 2019. And then COVID hit in, what was it, January? Well, they think it hit actually earlier than that, but it started becoming really noticeable around January of 2020. And within a few weeks, everything got shut down. So we were all sent home. I was fortunate. My boss literally gave me a work computer and said, here, just take this home, do what you do. You can do it from your house. So I was like, cool. So at least I didn't lose my job. And so I was home. I was depressed. I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. And I just, I had been trying to deal with the awakenings of my gifts that had started kind of in the early 2000s. And when I finally admitted to myself, yes, okay, I do hear voices and I do see things and I do know things. And I just decided to quit pretending like I couldn't do any of that stuff. And I just kind of stumbled into the community on YouTube, just channel surfing, trying to find something interesting, and wound up meeting just this remarkable group of people who were so loving and so encouraging, and a couple of long time psychics. They've been doing it for longer than I've been alive. Um, they started in on me saying, you know, you're psychic, right? And I was like, yeah, not really, just a little bit. They're like, no, no, you are. You're supposed to be a reader. And I'm like, I don't even own cards. I don't know the first thing about it. One of them said, send me your address. So I sent her my address. She sent me 2 decks of cards. I got them and I emailed her and I said, okay, now what? What do I do with them? And so she just kind of talked me through how to use them and just kind of go with what you're feeling. And at first it was just practicing at home by myself. And then everybody started in with, well, you need to start a channel. You know, you need to be reading for everybody. And so I finally decided, oh, okay, well I'll give it a shot. And we had a hurricane headed our way right about that time. And I thought, okay, I'll start out by doing a daily vlog, just talking about, okay, hurricane's this far away, this is what we're experiencing, and go from there. And fortunately, it kind of sheared off at the last minute, hit another area, it didn't hit us. But one of the other readers found out that I was doing that, and I had like 5 subscribers, I think. And he was on a live stream with someone else, and he was like, you have a channel now? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. And I, don't really know what to do with it. And he was like, okay, everybody stop what you're doing. Go over there and subscribe. I went from 5 subscribers to like almost 50 subscribers in a matter of about 15 minutes. And just blew me away. And so then I was like, okay, well, I guess I could actually do something now. People are signing up. And for about the first 6 months, I didn't really do anything on my own channel. I would go be a guest on someone else's channel. And there were just really wonderful people who invited me on and helped kind of walk me through as I was kind of getting a feel for it, getting a feel for the camera and for working with the cards and for reading and interacting with the chat. I mean, it's a lot when you're doing it because you're trying to read the chat and interact with the conversations, take questions, stop and plug in for a minute, do a reading, and then go back. You use all of your brain matter in the course of a show. And I finally did one on my own channel and had positive results to it. And I thought, okay, well, I guess we'll keep going with this. And it just kind of grew from there, I mean, I remember when I hit 100 subscribers, if I could have, I would have been doing cartwheels. So I'm handicapped, so I can't. I'm kind of very limited on my movement abilities. But so I slowly just started inviting other people to come on and be a guest and talk about different things about being psychic. And as I started going, new gifts started opening up to me, which that I would be on there like, okay, what do I do with this? I don't know what this means. And so I had some, like I said, some long-term folks that were really, really good about kind of explaining what that meant or why I was getting these kind of results, and how do I deal with that? And um, it just took a little bit. I slowly got comfortable with it. It just took a little time. And then I met Arthur about, I guess, about 2 years ago now, right after he did a show with Linda G. I saw him on with Linda G. And something about it just clicked for me. So I emailed him and invited him to be a guest, and we just clicked as friends. And of course, Arthur comes from a Hollywood background, I guess you could say, in the entertainment business. And he started he started kind of showing me how to make myself more presentable on camera. He got me the screen that's behind me so that you don't see the whole room and the mess that's behind it, and hides my junk piles back there. But he just started kind of coaching me, how to, look at the camera when you talk, quit looking down, do this, do that, and then he laughed. He says, I guess I was kind of hard on you. And I said, no, not really. Is it? I needed that instruction, because as I learned and improved little things, I would see a direct result in subscribership and whatnot. And then I finally got to the point where I got big enough. I decided to open up for membership. And so I've got membership running now, and I'm working on trying to build a website currently, because I have no idea how to do that. And I can't afford to pay anybody. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that and get a website up and running so it's easier for people to contact me. And I do private readings, as well as the little short, what we call mini readings, when we do live streams. And and yeah, just kind of going from there. I mean, once I kind of opened all the doors and said, okay, it is what it is. I am what I am. It's time to accept it. It was like the minute I got to that mindset, everything started rolling, and other people that I've invited on that were just starting out, they've like blown way past me as far as subscriber levels or stuff like that, but they're just different than me. They do different things that just attracts a lot of people. And for a while, I got caught up in that numbers race and trying to get so many. And then I finally got bored, and I thought, you know what? I'm not even going to look at it if I don't have to. Just, it is what it is. I'm just going to do what I do. And if people like it, they'll subscribe. And if they don't, they won't. And I'm not going to obsess about it anymore. And as soon as I got to that point in my head, that's when I started growing. And it was like Spirit was just waiting for me to quit trying to monopolize and control every move and just let them work. And so that's what I started doing. It was the early 2000s, I guess, when all the ghost shows and stuff first showed up, and internet radio was just starting out. And there was a channel I used to listen to every week on Para X network. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. But I got to know several of the hosts on the different shows, and they would do different things. Some would be cryptid shows, some would be ghost shows, some would be psychic shows. And so I kind of, it was strictly radio, strictly audio. There was no video to go with it. But I realized once I started doing my own channel, I'd already witnessed other people doing this and just didn't realize it. And so I was able to get in touch with a few folks that I knew from back in the day, and got them to come on and be guests on my channels. And now it's like I'm opening up. We can talk about anything, psychic, paranormal, ghost, boogeyman, whatever you want to talk about. I'm good for it, so I've experienced a little bit of everything. I'll be 64 in a couple of weeks. So I figured I've got lots of living under my belt, so.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like you have had a great experience getting your channel launched and some push to get it going. I think your guides also helped you there a little bit in pushing you in the right direction for that as well. So it sounds
Oh
like
yeah,
they pushed you in the right direction. So
exactly. It was like the first time I started doing the cards. The first time I sat down with a deck of tarot cards and just kind of like, what do I do with this? But at the same time, it felt like coming home. It was like an epiphany. It hit me. It was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. This is what I'm meant to do. And it was so clear. And, and so that's when I kind of knew, okay, I guess I'm going in this new direction and we'll see what happens next. And that's kind of where I am now. I do a monthly show with a friend who's a licensed counselor called Mastering Mental Wellness, and we talk about really sometimes difficult or touchy topics of how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with stress, how to deal with grief, and that kind of thing. And our goal isn't to have a huge audience, but just to have the audience participate and talk to each other, and that's what we've managed to build. And I'm going to keep going with that for a little bit until it's time to, when spirit says, okay, that's enough, move on, then I'll do something else. But like I said, I do a weekly slumber party every Saturday night, starting at 10 p.m. Central Time, and it's an anything goes kind of night. We use naughty cards, um, naughty tarot and oracle cards that have really bad curse words or other things on them, that I have to run a content warning before the show saying explicit language will be used. If you don't like that, then don't watch, go somewhere else. And that's a lot of fun. Sometimes I have a guest come on with me, and sometimes it's just me. And I do several other shows, several political shows that I do with other readers. And which is a lot of fun. And
yeah, because I was going to ask you about that
it's
as well, because I know you do those collab shows with the other readers and
yeah,
mediums and stuff that are on YouTube. How did you get involved in being sort of the back end gatekeeper to that? I know you're the person that sort of helps them out on the backside, putting the questions up, doing the chat, and looking after
right.
that part for them. So how does that work?
That was just kind of by a fluke, I guess. I mean, I know how hard it is because I do it myself. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, take the questions, stop and plug in and do a reading, then go back to the chat. It can be, not everybody is as efficient at multitasking like that as everyone else. And I knew a couple of people would get really kind of stressed out about it. And then one day Arthur asked me, he said, well, you know how to do backstage? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, would you run backstage for me while I do a live stream? Because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And I'm like, sure, I have nothing else to do. And so that kind of branched out to a couple of folks that when they're doing a live stream, if I'm available, I'll go hang out backstage and just keep up with their chat and post the questions for them and kind of keep it rolling. So all they have to do is just focus on reading. And I found that I actually enjoyed doing that. It's a lot of fun. And so there's a few people I do that for. They don't pay me for it or anything. I do it because I enjoy it and it helps them. And so, yeah,
Is it
I
tricky
just
keeping
felt
up
like
with?
it was something I needed to do,
Yeah.
so.
Is it kind of tricky though to keep up with the chat and posting the questions up that you have to select for the readers, or
I mean, the people that I do it for now, we kind of have a rhythm going of how they want it done. But in the beginning, it was like, are you only taking certain kind of questions? Are you gonna only do this or only do that? It was just getting a feel for what the reader wanted and what direction they wanted the show to move along in. And I sit with a notepad, and as I star questions for us to ask, I write down the name so that I can keep up with who has already asked a question and who hasn't. And because we try to they like to make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask a question and not the same person with 10 questions, which sometimes we have to deal with. And it's just a matter of, and again, it kind of comes with getting to know the person you're working backstage for, kind of to get that feel of when they're through with their answer, but they'll kind of keep talking sometimes, but the reading's over with. They're just jibber jabbering. And then you plop up that next question, and it's like, oh, focus now. Okay, next question. And so it's mainly to just keep it rolling efficiently where there's not a lot of dead air, while you're trying to search for something. Um, I think most of the people in chat appreciate it because they don't they don't get missed as often as when it's somebody just doing it on their own, because it's so easy to miss questions because you can only pay attention, focus in on one thing at a time in a lot of respects. And so people get missed, and then they get their feelings hurt because you didn't read my question. It's like, I didn't see your question. So um, it's just a way to kind of make it a little more efficient and let everybody in the chat know that everybody's gonna, within the time frame that they're gonna operate the show, we're gonna get as many people answered as we can. Sometimes I'll pop on with them. They'll be like, hey, come out from back there and come say, hey, and I'll pop on the screen for a few minutes and chit chat or do a few readings. If somebody's internet or something screws up and they get knocked out, I'll pop in and kind of be like a filler until they come back. And just just depends on what it needs. But I just enjoy being able to sit back and I don't have to focus on reading. I can just focus on what they're saying in the chat. And of course, you have your moderators who are a big help with running chat. I don't think any of us could do it without our moderators. That you find people that are kind of loyal to showing up when you're on air, and you make them a mod, and they have a little bit more authority to kind of police the chat. If somebody gets ugly or something, they can boot them out. Or if a troll pops in and starts with their crazy religious stuff, which can be really ugly the way they do it, um, or that kind of thing, you can go, you've got your moderators that are there that can time them out, remove the comment, so that people aren't offended, because we're all there to have a good time. I enjoy it because I enjoy interacting with everybody too, because when I'm doing backstage, I can just sit and chat in the chat room and I don't have to worry about it. And that's fun. And I like to talk, so whether if it's with my fingers or with my mouth, either way it works.
Either way, you get to sort of watch the show, but be a part of it as well. So you see what's going on, help them out, but also
Yeah,
keep track of the back end as well. So you get both sides.
exactly. For me, it's fun. I mean, there may come a day when I just don't have the time or energy to do that for people anymore. I'm hoping to kind of train a few other people that can maybe step into that role for those that have the bigger channels where when they're on, they've got 3,000 people in their chat. I mean, chat runs so fast. It's like, how are you going to keep up with that and do your show, and be personable and do everything on the camera? And as you well know, it can be real difficult trying to run the video, the audio, the guests, this, that, the other, and keep up. And it's a lot easier when you can kind of take some of that busy bodywork stuff away so that you're just working on an interview or working on readings or whatever, that can make a big difference to not only your comfort level, but if you have a guest, your guest's comfort level,
Yeah.
Sorry, I get real growly
Oh,
sometimes.
that's no problem.
I had a severe injury to my spine in '99, and they had to fuse 4 vertebrae in my neck.
Oh, wow.
So, and they go through the front to do that, not through the back. And when they did, they damaged my vocal cords.
Okay.
And so now it sounds like I'm talking through a gravel pit.
Yeah, that's not
And
good.
I drink a lot of stuff because I have to keep my mouth wet. I can't.
Yeah. No, not a problem at all. Take a break or take a sip if you need to. So,
Yeah, but yeah, we're good.
all right. So
You know.
I'm gonna go next to you're also a psychic and a medium, both.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey through mediumship and any
Um,
experiences that you want to share with us?
okay. Mediumship is a fairly new gift. I've only been doing that for about a year. I'm still learning control over that, which some people it just seems to come to them naturally, and others of us have to practice and learn how to control that when it comes in and when you don't want it to come in, because there are times when I'm trying to get a reading on, Uncle Joe who passed 20 years ago, and it's nothing. I get crickets. There's just nobody's coming through. And there are other times when I'm trying to reach in and I'll get 20 people that I come across, all trying to talk, at the same time. And so I talk a lot with some of the other mediums who are really, really good at it. It's like, okay, how do I deal with this or how do I focus on that? And they help. We all talk to each other and work with each other. And with me, it's just a matter of learning control with a mediumship. So I never know if it's going to work or not. Usually, if I'm doing like a personal reading, I'll start with the reading, the cards, the pendulum, whatever I'm using, and I'll save the mediumship to last because sometimes it takes the process of going through all of that before I can get Uncle Joe to come say, hey, and let me know what he's thinking. It happened yesterday. I did a private reading, and when we got to the end and I kind of tried to open up to see if their person was going to come across. It was my mother that came through. And it was like she brought the person with her. And that's happened several times in the past 6 months or so. My mom will show up with like whoever it is in tow, like she's got them hooked around the arm saying, yeah, come on, we're going to go talk to my daughter. Then, so it's almost like she's put herself as a go between me and spirit, or me and the deceased, I guess you could say. Um, a lot of times I hear the chatter, and I'm so used to it that a lot of times I don't even really hear it unless I focus on it. But I've been hearing voices since my first memory of that. I think I was around 4. And when I would play, be playing in my room or something, and this very deep bass male voice would talk to me. Think Darth Vader's voice. That's what it sounded like. This was decades before anybody knew what Darth Vader was. Um, and I would sit and talk to this voice that would tell me things. And somebody would walk in the room and they'd be like, who are you talking to? And I'd say, God, because in my mind, that's who else is going to talk to you but God? I didn't have the concept of spirits or anything. So I just thought it was God talking to me. And everybody would just kind of shrug their shoulders and went, oh, okay. I found out later that all the women in my family are psychic in some form. I don't think any of us have the same exact gift, but variations a little differently. And so I was around 9 when my mother realized that I was psychic too. And that was her response, was she just kind of looked at me and went, oh, you got the gift too. That was it. She never said another word, never explained anything, nothing, because she hated her gift. It terrified her. She would have visions of people dying. If they had like a traumatic death or something, she would see it before it happened. And it traumatized her to the point that she shut down over it. She wouldn't talk about it. Um, only a few times I can remember her and her sister discussing it, and which is why I even knew that she had that ability, um, because I would listen in probably when I wasn't supposed to, but the grown-ups are talking, you're going to go put your ear next to the door, see what you can hear. And it just, when I was around 12, I discovered I could astral travel. I could lay in bed and float up to the ceiling and look down at myself, sleeping in the bed. And it was like, that was just the coolest thing ever. And I would like float around the room, but I wouldn't leave the room because I was terrified if I left the room, I would get lost. And if I got lost, what would happen to my body? If they tried to wake me up, would they think I was dead and then put me in a coffin? And that terrified me because that's like my deepest, darkest fear is being buried alive. I don't know why, but it is. I'm very claustrophobic. Um, and so I would never leave the room. I would just like hang out, just float around the room because it was kind of different and fun. And then when I hit my teen years, I kind of started trying to shut it down because I didn't want to be thought I was weird. I didn't want people to think I was weirdo or something. And that was when I had my first UFO experience. I was about 16, I think. And it was a group of us in the middle of the night, like 2 in the morning. And we had all gone outside to go smoke a legal cigarette and just hang. And I'm looking up at the sky and I'm seeing these lights moving in no way like an airplane would move. We're talking back in the 70s. So there weren't drones or anything like that. And I'm like, do y'all see that? And everybody's looking up going, oh, wow, what are those lights doing? It was like 5 of us watching this 3 sets of lights, like dancing and moving and zipping here and there and up and down and all around. And we must have stood there and watched for probably half an hour before they just finally zipped away and we were all looking at each other like, what the hell was that? And somebody was like, those were UFOs, man, because that was still really kind of a taboo topic. You didn't really talk about it because people would think you were nuts. So we only ever discussed it amongst ourselves because we were the ones that saw it. And we didn't talk about it with anybody else. Then as I got older, just different things. We lived in a haunted house when I was around 11 or 12, I guess. It was an apartment and it was just creepy as hell. We would get weird things would happen in this apartment. It'd be like the back bedroom was always cold. We lived in Florida at the time. It'd be 100 degrees outside and the back bedroom was like 60. Never changed temperature. And I realized now that it was a portal, but back then I didn't know. I just knew it was creepy. It was cold and I didn't want to go in there. And so even with other people, I didn't want to go in there. One day the living room, dining room, kitchen was like one long rectangular room with like half walls that kind of separated the rooms. And I was in the living room on one end, sitting on the couch. And my mother was on the other end in the kitchen, cooking or something. And she turned around to open the refrigerator door to get something out of the refrigerator. And when she opened the door, I saw her. And of course, when the door opened, I was seeing her on the inside of the door, that didn't block my view when she opened the refrigerator door. And she opened it, and I literally saw her like cave in, like something had punched her in the chest. And she flew straight back a good 10 feet into the wall. And I mean, you're 11, 12 years old. What do you do? I mean, what the hell? What do you do? And just, I remember just being frozen, and I couldn't, I didn't know what to do, what to say. I was terrified. And my mother kind of recovered, and she hollered out, go away and leave me alone. Well, come to find out, I found out years later that when we lived there, she was getting punched and pinched and scratched all the time. Whatever was in that place did not like her. Didn't bother me, didn't bother my brother, who was like 3 or 4 at the time. Um, but it hated my mother and was always attacking her. It wasn't long after the kitchen incident that we moved and got the hell out of there. Move on down the years, and I'm in my early 20s. I'm married and living in Louisiana. And a new coworker for my husband, um, he and his wife were newlyweds, and they invited us to come over one night, come watch the football game or whatever it was, drink some beer, hang out. When we got there, when we pulled in the driveway, I just it hit me full force. I just looked at my husband. I said, I can't go in that house. He was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I can't go in that house. There's something in that house. I can't go in there. And it hit me so strong, it made me physically throw up. And I was like, just go tell him I got sick and you're going to take me home. You can come back if you want, but take me home. And so he did. And then about a week later, we had them come over to our place. And at one point, I got up and went in the kitchen. I went and fixed coffee for everybody. And the wife followed me into the kitchen. She says, you felt it too, didn't you? And I looked at her and I said, felt what? She says, there's something in that house that's not right. And I said, yeah, you're right. There's something there. I said, it terrified me. She says, I'm scared to be in there by myself. So when my husband's at work, I go to a friend's. I won't stay in that house alone. She would get up in the middle of the night and find all of the gas burners turned on the stove, but the pilot light had been blown out. So it was just gas in the room, And she got in the habit where she would turn the gas off at the wall before she went to bed at night because she was terrified that, what if something sparked and, made an explosion. But it was just different things like that over the years would happen. I'd go somewhere and walk in a place and I would immediately be like, I've been here before. I knew where everything was. And or we would show up somewhere and I'd be like, I'm not going in there. There's something there. It's not right. I'm not going in there. And I wasn't an avid ghost hunter, so to speak. I knew they were there and I didn't like them. So, but it's all throughout my life. So it's like I've always known it. And I knew I had the ability to see and hear things since, like I said, since I was 4, but I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't have anybody explain to me what was going on. And I was petrified to say anything to my friends for fear that they would think Shari was a weirdo and we don't want to be friends with her anymore. Normal things kids think. Um, and it wasn't until, like the early 2000s when the first ghost shows came on. And I would sit and watch them with my mom, and we would start talking about stuff. And so, yeah, no, yeah, I've experienced that. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I've experienced that too. And so the conversation started opening up at that point. And then after she passed, that's when I opened up the door to the rest of it and just said, all right, here I am. What you got? And yeah, they hit me full force with it. So it's been a matter of separating out and learning how to kind of controls some aspects. It's like I had to fuss at my guides and tell them no downloads when I'm driving. They tried to give me downloads once when I was driving home from work. I almost had a wreck because when I start getting a download, it looks like I'm going to sleep. Because I just like, and I'll go down because they're just inputting. And I had to tell them, okay, no, you have to wait till I'm not in the car, somewhere safe, and then you can download it. Not when I'm driving. And they're pretty good about that. I know most of my guides are Native American guides. I asked them once what their names were, and they just said, "You can't pronounce it. Don't worry about it." I was like, "Okay." It's just little things all throughout my life. I would know something was going to happen, and it happened. I knew somebody was going to call, and then the phone would ring, and that's who it would be. I would like visit a friend or somebody, and I would see and hear maybe like a grandparent or a great grandparent that would show up and want to talk to them. And I didn't know what to do with that. It was like, I'm not saying anything. And now when I'm doing readings and stuff, a lot of times I get messages in movie clips. It's like I'll have like a scene from a movie that will play through my head. I'll be like, what has that got to do with what I'm reading on? And I'll just get that. No, tell them what you're seeing. Despite the fact that I was worried people would think I was really nuts, I would say whatever I was witnessing, and they would be, "Oh, that was our favorite movie. Oh, we watched that all the time together." Or, "Oh, I really like that actor that was in that movie," or something. It would always resonate with the person I was reading for, even though I didn't understand what do you want me to say that for? So that's been learning to just let it out what they tell me and try not to filter, because a lot of times you try to filter things and then you lose the message. When there's a group of us together, it'll sound like we're all talking over each other, and it's just because we're getting hits. Spirit's telling us stuff, and it's like if we don't get it out right then when we get hit with it, it's gone a minute later. We've lost it. So, but we all know that, so it doesn't bother us. I know some of the chats sometimes get a little, y'all always talking over each other. Yeah, it's all right. We know. Don't worry about it. And, but it's once I opened the door up, it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life. It helped me deal with the death of my husband. It helped me deal with the death of my mom. And it helped me deal with helping my son healing from PTSD after he got out of the military. And so there's just so many things that have happened in my life that if it hadn't been for my guides and stuff being there to tell me, even when I was pretending I couldn't hear them, they would still tell me things, and it was still a comfort to know, oh, that's normal. Don't worry about it. Oh, okay, that's going to happen. I don't look for it, not to be surprised when it occurs, just little things like that. But once I open that door up, it's been the most wonderful experience in my life. It's like I wouldn't trade it back now for anything.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, spirit guides always prepare you for what you need to know. Like you just said, it
Right.
helped you prepare for things in life that you may not have realized that you needed help with, right? So I think that really helped you out there too. So,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
so now I want to touch a little
So
bit on some of the creepy stuff that happens around your neck of the woods down in Louisiana. I know
yeah.
you have a lot of folk tales and a lot of legends down there. So,
Yeah, we've got our very own Cajun werewolf called the Rougarou. That's with an R, the Rougarou, which was based off of myths and legends dating back to France, which was the Lagourou with an L and a G. And so as the Cajun people went from France to Nova Scotia, then down the Mississippi until they got to Louisiana. They hit the ocean, and it's like, oh, I guess we'll stop here. A lot of that, a lot of the mysticism from Europe, as well as things that occurred as they slowly migrated south. You have your Cajun people, which are part of that line, and then you have the Creole people, which are more of a mix of Cajun, African American, Haitian, some other South or Central American cultures that kind of, that's the Creole. And then there's the Cajun. So they're two separate groups. Food is similar but different. The music, you have Cajun music, you have Zydeco music. It's similar but different. To someone that's never been down here, they wouldn't know the difference. They're like, it all sounds the same. But when you've grown up around it, you can pick out the difference. We have voodoo down here, which the original story, the original meaning for voodoo was not zombies and putting bad juju on people. It was done as a means of sending protection and healing to people that you cared about. And you would put that intention into a doll and then send that doll to the person. And then wherever they were having the pain or hurting or whatever, that's where they would stick a pin to take away their pain and put it into the doll. And that's some of the basic origins of what voodoo is. But there's also a lot of South African, or not South African, but just African cultures, different countries and stuff from the African continent that are blended in with that as well. You have on one side, you had like the Creole people with Madame LaRue, who's a very famous voodoo queen. And from what I understand, she used it for both good and bad. She'd get pissed off at you. She'd put some juju out on you, and I've seen that stuff work on people. It's like, yeah, don't mess with those people. They can, don't mess with that. It can come back to bite you if you're not careful. We have like our own healers or witch doctors, and in the Cajun culture, they're called cheaters, and they're more of they're like a healer. We actually had a treater that lived next door to us when my son was second, third grade, and he got real sick one afternoon. Ear got inflamed, started running a high fever, and we were panicking. We didn't know what was wrong with him. And in the middle of the chaos, my neighbor came over wanting to borrow a cup of sugar or an egg or something like that. And we were like, yeah, come on in, help yourself. And she's like, well, what's going on? What's wrong? Because she felt it. That's why she came over. And my husband started telling her, well, we don't know. Our son says his ear hurts and he's running a fever. It just suddenly happened. And she said, oh, well, can I pray for him? And we're like, yeah, sure. Knock yourself out. She went and sat on the couch, and she had him come sit down and lay his head in her lap. And she started rubbing her hands together, and she started talking in tongues. And she put her hands on his ear, side of his head, and just kind of this sing-songy chant as she rubbed the side of his head. And she did that for like about 5 minutes, and we're looking at each other going like, what the hell is she doing? And then she gets up. She says, okay, he should be okay now. And she got what she came over to borrow, and she left. And by the time we saw her out the door and turned around to go back to pack it up to go to the emergency room with my son, He was fine. No fever, no earache. He was bouncing off the walls, perfectly normal. And we were, my husband and I were both like, okay, did we just witness what we think we just witnessed? And because when she first started praying and talking, she started out in Cajun uh, language, and then it veered off from that and went into tongues, which is just spirit talk. I mean, there's several people on YouTube that have the ability of light speech. They call it light speech, where they're simply saying what it is they're getting, and it's in a language that none of us recognize or know. It's just a light language. So there was that I experienced firsthand, watching my son get healed, and I've seen, there's a lot. Hollywood kind of made a lot of it into the boogeyman. Oh, it's evil, it's this, it's that, it's the other, and it's like not really. But people kind of went with it. It's like, hey, if I can make a buck off of making it appear to be zombies and evil, hook me up, and so you get that mix, and which can be kind of depressing in some sense, because you're like, that's not what it is, because then people will have the wrong idea. But there's a lot of haunted plantations down here that are still up. We just had, I think it's one of the oldest and largest plantation houses just burned down this past week. Caught on fire and I mean burnt to the ground. There's nothing left. And it was, according to everything I've read about it, it was like the original owners that owned the slaves and stuff in that house were extraordinarily cruel and inhumane with their slaves, which is an abomination in my view. But to even think you can own another person, that's just horrible. But I mean, there's still family that it's been in the same family all these hundreds of years, and I mean, it's a tourist attraction. They would have big events there. People would get married there. That's kind of creepy, but that kind of thing. And yeah, just like last week, it burnt. I don't know
Would
what
it be
caused the fire.
one of the famous ones that people know about, or?
Yeah, I'm going blank on the name of it. And Nottoway Plantation. Nottoway, Nottoway Plantation. Um, it was over between Baton Rouge and New Orleans on the Mississippi River, and in Iberville Parish. It said that the fire began in the south wing and then quickly spread, destroying a 53,000 square foot estate. That's huge, that's really big. But there was a lot of other folks that I've since spoken to who've been there said that there was a lot of really negative energy in that place, probably dating back to its slave owning days. So, I mean, you hate to see something historical burn down, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, maybe it was time for it to be gone. People are going to do and use whatever they need to make money. I'm sure a lot of people think that way about psychics or ghost hunters or whatnot, that we're all a bunch of frauds, running around just grifting money off of people, and they don't have any clue that what we're experiencing is real, as real as sitting here talking to you, or anybody else. Um, it's getting people to understand that. I think I quit trying to prove, what my abilities were. And somebody invariably somebody will say, well, prove it. Tell me what I'm thinking. It's like, I don't know what you're thinking. Because one, I'm not in the right headspace. Two, I haven't opened that door to know what you're thinking. And three, I don't need to prove to you anything, what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm feeling. That's all that matters.
Exactly, and that's what
If you
our
want to
show
believe it or
here.
not.
Yeah, that's what our
Yeah, I
show
mean,
here
it's
is
like
all about too. It's about bringing people's stories to light. Everybody
yeah,
does that same thing. There might be a psychic, there might be a medium, there might be into the paranormal, have experiences, but we all experience
oh
things
yeah,
differently and we all learn differently. So
that's
that's what
right.
the show is about, is bringing that story forward and how you
Yeah, I
come to
love
what
your
you
show. I
do. So,
started watching it. So,
great.
when Arthur told me about it, I was like, oh, I missed that one. I'm gonna have to go look. So,
Yeah.
you're welcome. I'm probably talked way too much. I'm sure you'll edit some of it out. And
Miss one of our episodes? Replay our episodes on Rhode Island Broadcasting. Show your support for Haunting Live by supporting our broadcast partner, Rhode Island Broadcasting. Find them on YouTube. For more Haunting Live real experiences, be sure to follow us on our social, on Instagram, Facebook, and also Blue Sky. And don't forget to also check us out on our official website, HauntingLivePodcast.com.